What is up, guys and gals? Raph once again here from BNC Camera, and in today's episode we'll be going over some basic photography tips. Even if you're relatively new to identifying yourself as a photographer or videographer, you're probably already familiar with the power that comes with capturing images to tell a story, to bottle up a memory, or preserve a moment. With the advent of smartphone cameras, we snap pictures every day without thinking twice. But now you're here, which means you're ready to think twice, maybe even 3 times, and get a handle on the know-how and equipment needed to advance as a dedicated amateur, a semi-pro, or even a professional. So we'll go ahead and break down some quick but essential fundamentals for you. Get to know your camera, whether it's a smartphone, a simple point and shoot, or some heavy-duty professional gear. Feeling good about adjusting camera settings such as aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, knowing how to set the automatic flash, being able to toggle between display settings, and getting your mind around the zoom mechanism are all key elements to making sure you are your best self behind the viewfinder. Let's run through some camera aspects, many of which you should get to know on a first name basis. Your viewfinder, the LCD, and the ever helpful grid mode. Looking through your camera's viewer, or using the live view mode on the back LCD screen, gives you a basic frame to get your composition started off on the right foot. For some extra help, switch on the grid mode, which will put a diagonal grid over the LCD screen. This helps you make sure you're sticking to the grammatical rule of composition. Next up, you're going to want to understand your camera's zoom. Customarily, it's better to physically move closer or further away from your subject instead of using the camera's digital or even optical zoom, as zooming in will lower your image quality. But cameras still come with this function, and if you've invested in some high quality glass, you can get away with some excellent and essential zooming action. Next up, you're going to want to understand your camera's ability with color balance. Every light throws a different color temperature, visually seen as colors. Sometimes they're warm, sometimes they're cool. Sometimes they're vivid, and sometimes they're dim. If you don't correct these variations, the different color temperatures will mess up your camera's ability to see what your eyes are seeing in any given environment. Use the baseline color white as your starting point. If you can adjust your camera so that the whites in your photos appear truly white, despite the light color temperature, all of the other colors will fall in line. Next, you're going to want to understand your exposure triangle. To get your exposure just right, start by selecting a shutter speed, adjusting your lens aperture, and set your ISO setting. Out of the box, your camera will come with dedicated dials, wheels, and buttons for these essential functions. The primary mode dial on the top of your camera usually gives you quick flash settings. Speaking of modes, let's go ahead and talk about your camera's modes. Dial M for manual. The goal should be to get your camera mode button set to M. This way, you're in complete control of the camera's settings, having to adjust shutter speed, aperture, and ISO all by your lonesome. But if you're new to photography, don't be afraid to utilize the other mode settings, such as A for aperture priority, S for shutter priority, and P for programmed automatic. When in aperture priority, you control the lens's aperture while the rest of the camera functions in auto mode. It's the same thing for S, except you're controlling the camera's shutter speed. These modes allow you to focus on one aspect of the exposure triangle at a time, getting very comfortable with how they affect your image in the process. P is essentially auto, but it won't use your on-camera flash, and it allows you more flexibility with ISO settings. Once you've mastered A, S, and P, you can switch that dial to M and begin seeing how each point of the exposure triangle works together to give you the photo you set out to capture. Let's talk about some support equipment that can help you right out the gate. So for lenses, in addition to being the clearest quality upgrade when it comes to gear, they are the most artistic aspect of how you're going to communicate with the viewers of your photograph. A lower f-stop can add emphasis and drama to a person's portrait. Each lens is a choice, so embrace the creative side of your photography ambitions. Alrighty, give yourself a leg up with some tripods. More practical than creative, it's virtually a must to get a reliable tripod. They will be especially crucial when you're working in low light, slowing down shutter speeds, and doing long exposures. Brighten some things up with some lights. Photography is nothing without lights, and often what's coming into conflict with your creative vision is the amount of light you have on hand. Get yourself an external flash or speed light, which is far superior than the on-camera flash. Then experiment with modifying the flash or bouncing it off of the reflector or even a white wall. Make sure you have enough space with memory and media. A bit less flashy than lights or lenses, but equally important is the type of memory card you're using to capture your photos and video. Newer cameras are capable of incredible amounts of data collection, Just make sure you're investing a few extra bucks on the proper memory cards. When in doubt, go big, go fast, and go weather resistant. Spring for some extra batteries. This is especially important when shooting mirrorless or doing a video of any kind. Methods notorious for draining batteries quickly. So you've got a camera, a few lenses, an external flash, a tripod, at least 2 memory cards, and maybe even 3 extra batteries. Where exactly are they going to go? Try shopping for a bag that fits your style and fulfills your needs. That way, you can travel comfortably when hunting for an iconic image. Also, think about picking up some cleaning supplies. If your windows get dirty, so will your lenses. Make sure to keep your equipment clean and in good shape. They'll last longer and never stop you from catching the moment. And finally, some last-minute tips for a rainy or sunny day. Practice makes perfect. Once you're bitten by the photography bug, you won't have to force yourself to get out there and shoot. But if you find that your gear is collecting dust, go out and have some fun. Try to find even lighting so you're not facing exposure extremes. Get closer to the subjects for that shallow depth of field look. Pay attention to how your eyes interact with the subjects near and far. Check your gear and charge your batteries the night before for obvious reasons. Wait for golden hour, the times when the sun is rising or setting. Those shots are great for beautiful, rich light and for dynamic photos. An essential one is to stay organized while in the field or editing photos. You can quickly fire off 1,000 pictures or more in an afternoon thanks to digital photography. Come up with a system that works for you and keep your creativity in check. And that is a wrap. Thanks for joining us. If you happen to have any good tidbits of your own, we sure would like to hear them in the comments section down below. If you found any of these tips helpful, a like or subscribe would also be much appreciated as well. Once again, this is Raph from BNC Camera. We hope all this information helps you to either continue shooting or maybe even pick up a camera for the very first time. Remember, regrets are things you didn't do. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and make things happen.